before Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence. There were 6 men who stood in the storm. They were hunted, arrested, exiled, yet they stood taller than their chains. Today, we know them as the Big Six. But who were they really? What did they believe in? And what happened after the celebrations faded? It's 1947. The Gold Coast is burning with discontent. The Second World War is over, but African soldiers return to the same oppression they left behind. Schools are segregated. Freedom of speech is punished. The British still hold the realms of power. Then a letter is written, a letter that would ignite a nation. The United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC, demanded self-government in the shortest possible time, not tomorrow, not in 20 years, now. But who were the Big Six? Dr. J.B. Dankwa, the scholar, the thinker, founder of UGCC, he believed in elite leadership, slow transition, and diplomacy. Kwame Nkrumah, the firebrand, the dreamer, the one who would break ranks. He wanted mass mobilization, not patience, but power. Emmanuel Obechi-Bilamte, the voice, gifted orator, fierce campaigner for justice and dignity. Edward Ekufuado, the strategist, future Chief Justice, calm, calculating. Ebenezer Akweje, the connector, the one who invited Nkrumah from America. Without him, the story might have ended differently. In 1948, Accra erupted. Ex-servicemen marching peacefully for their pensions were shot by colonial police. Riots followed. In retaliation, the British arrested the Big Six, blaming them for instigating disorder. They were imprisoned without trial, but their jailing only made them legends. After their release, unity cracked, and Nkrumah broke away and formed the UGCC, the Convention's People's Party. He wanted self-government now. Dankwa and the rest of UGCC favored a slower, more cautious path. The people chose Nkrumah. His vision became Ghana's path. But that victory also buried deep divisions. The Big Six were once united by a single purpose, but history turned them into rivals. Some were celebrated, others were silenced. Dankwa died in prison under Nkrumah's government. Obechi-Bilamte's legacy faded. Yet, all 6 are now on Ghana's currency, a sign that in the end, each played their part in the journey. Ghana's freedom wasn't handed over. It was demanded, written, and bled for by 6 men who believed the future was worth the fight. This is their story. This is Ancestral Files. Subscribe. Deep beneath the forests of Ghana, legends speak of rivers of gold and vanished kingdoms. But are the stories true or just myths passed through generations? The Ghana Empire, also known as Wagadu, existed over 1,000 years ago in what is today southeastern Mauritania or western Mali. Despite its name, it wasn't located in modern Ghana. But it was rich, incredibly rich, especially in gold. So much that Arab scholars said the king owned gold nuggets as big as stones. According to oral tradition, the exact location of the mines were kept secret, even from foreign traders. Some stories say only the king and a few chosen workers knew where the mines were. Other tales claim that these mines collapsed were buried or were spirit protected to prevent them from ever being found again. Modern researchers believe many of these mines were in the Bambouk region, but the exact size remains uncertain. Could there be untapped gold under modern soil? Some explorers and locals still believe the lost mines may be rediscovered, but others say they were just symbolic myths. What do you think? Were the lost gold mines real or just golden legends? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more African history and hidden stories. They were feared, respected, and deadly. An army of all-female warriors who defended their kingdom without mercy. These are the Dahomey Amazons, the real warriors behind the legend. In the 17th century, in what is now Benin, the kingdom of Dahomey rose in power, facing constant threats. They did the unthinkable, trained women as elite warriors. They called themselves Agoje. These weren't ceremonial guards. They were brutal in battle, experts with machete, and loyal only to their king. Girls as young as 12 were taken to be trained. No marriage, no children, just war. They could run barefoot through thorns, scale walls, and kill without flinching. Their motto was simple: victory or death. In the 1890s, they faced their biggest enemy, the French colonial army. Despite being outgunned, the Dahomey Amazons fought fiercely. Hundreds died in battle, choosing death over surrender. It took modern weapons to defeat them, but their legend lived on. Today, they inspire movies and myths, but Agoje were real. Africa's warrior queens who left their enemies trembling. Salute to the sisterhood of steel.
They weren't just artifacts. They were memory. They were protection. They were power. But when the British stormed the walls of Benin in 1897, they didn't just loot a kingdom. They may have unleashed a curse that still echoes across empires. This is Ancestral Files, and today we unearth the curse of the Benin Bronzes, long before skyscrapers touched the skies of Europe. The Kingdom of Benin in present-day Nigeria was already an architectural marvel. Visitors from Portugal and the Netherlands marveled at its complexity. Its walls, for times longer than the Great Wall of China, guarded not just a city, but a sacred civilization. At its heart was the Oba, the divine king, chosen by the ancestors. And surrounding him were the Benin Bronzes, thousands of bronze and ivory artworks, crafted not just for beauty, but for spiritual memory. These weren't decorations. Each plaque was a living history scroll, capturing coronations, wars, star alignments, and ancestral prophecies. The Benin Bronzes were sacred protectors. Each piece was forged with ritual. Some were even said to carry encoded messages from the spirit world. The carvers, part artist, part priest, were not just craftsmen. They were keepers of ancestral contracts. To steal a bronze was to break a covenant. In 1897, Britain launched a brutal invasion under the guise of a punitive expedition. The real goal, to control trade and loot the Oba's treasury. Benin City burned, its shrines desecrated, the Oba was exiled, and over 3,000 bronzes were stolen and shipped to Europe. Museums in London, Berlin, and New York began to display them like trophies. But curators began to whisper. Strange things, broken glass, fires with no source, rooms where the lights never stayed on. And in Nigeria, survivors said, those who took the bronzes stole our gods. Is it a curse or karma? In 1973, a German curator reportedly suffered a fatal accident days after acquiring a Benin bronze. Another, in Britain, documented recurring dreams, visions of masked spirits pointing toward a forest fire. In the Yoruba spiritual tradition, certain items are protected by a spiritual energy that binds reality. Remove them from their sacred ground, and chaos follows. Even in modern times, some museums report unexplainable malfunctions in rooms housing Benin pieces. Are the spirits reclaiming balance, or is the guilt of empire finally catching up? The world is waking up. Germany has returned dozens of bronzes. The Smithsonian is sending theirs home, but the British Museum still holding over 900 pieces, refusing to let go. Why? Because these aren't just African artifacts. They are proof of a forgotten power. Proof that Africa was never primitive. It was stolen from. And the spirits of Benin, they remember. Today, new artists are learning the sacred techniques. The Oba's descendants are rising. And across the diaspora, African children are seeing images of kings and queens in bronze. Subscribe. In the heart of southern Africa lies a mystery built entirely in stone. Granite walls rising up to 11 meters tall. Towers without mortar. Citadels in the sky. This is Great Zimbabwe, the silent empire built of rock and ambition. What happened to them? And why did the world deny their legacy for centuries? Stretching over 1,800 acres, Great Zimbabwe was the capital of a thriving kingdom between the 11th and 15th centuries. At its peak, the city housed tens of thousands, and its influence reached across regional trade networks, even touching distant Asia. But when European explorers first documented the site in the 19th century, they could not accept what they saw. Africans building monumental cities. So they invented others. Phoenicians, Arabs, even Atlantis. Over the next decades, these ruins were erased until African scholars fought back, reclaiming history, rock by rock. The walls of Great Zimbabwe were built with precision, with tightly fitted granite blocks, no mortar, constructed by skilled masons over generations. Great enclosure, 250 meters of stone walls, with elliptical shapes symbolizing power. Hill complex, traditional shrine area, likely for elite and religious elites. Valley ruins, residential areas with huts and everyday life. Their architecture was symbolic. Walls separated sacral from secular. Stones encased both king and cosmos. Perched atop great enclosure towers are carved the iconic Zimbabwe birds. 4 of them remain today, symbolizing spiritual power and national identity. These birds have become Zimbabwe's flag, coat of arms, and even face of their currency. Great Zimbabwe was not isolated. It was a key node in the Indian Ocean trade network, exchanging gold, ivory, and copper for luxury items. Archaeological digs uncovered exotic goods, Chinese Shang dynasty currency, Persian glass beads, new Tupper gold ingots. These finds prove the city was globally connected, centuries before colonialism. Daily life at Great Zimbabwe revolved around agriculture, millet, sorghum, goats, cattle. Homes were built of thatch and mud between stone courtyards. Leadership was likely paternal matriarchal. It's believed the king and queen mother shared power, a tradition still seen in Shona societies today. By the 15th century, Great Zimbabwe was abandoned. Why? Scholars debate. Environmental degradation and erosion, overpopulation and deforestation, political fracturing, or climate change. Drug cycles that undermined agriculture. The truth, probably all combined. But when the people left, they took their stone city with them, never returning. When the ruins were rediscovered, Europeans refused to believe Africans built them. They allowed shockingly racist theories, Vikings, to dominate academic thought. Great Zimbabwe is more than an archaeological site. It is a monument to resilience, identity, and African achievement. Its walls whisper, "You cannot erase us. Subscribe." In the heart of 17th century Angola, when the Portuguese Empire sought to devour an African kingdom, a queen rose, not with silk and pearls, but with blood, fire, and steel. She was a diplomat, a warrior, and a legend. Nzinga, the woman who defied empires. This is the untold story of Africa's resistance queen. Born around 1583 in the kingdom of Ndongo, Nzinga was a royal by blood. Her father, King Kiluanji, ruled a proud nation resisting growing Portuguese incursions. From a young age, Nzinga learned the art of war, diplomacy, and survival. Portuguese traders wanted control over land, resources, and people. Their goal, to enslave and export Africans into a booming Atlantic slave trade. But Nzinga was no ordinary princess. She was destined to become a shield against the storm. In 1622, her brother, the king, sent her to negotiate with the Portuguese. They tried to humiliate her, offering no chair during the meeting. She turned her servant into a throne. A message was sent. Nzinga bows to no one. She secured a peace treaty, demanded the return of captured lands, and even converted to Christianity, strategically taking the name Ana de Souza. But diplomacy had limits. When the Portuguese betrayed the treaty and resumed attacks, Nzinga chose war. After her brother's death and betrayal from within her own court, Nzinga became queen. She united rival kingdoms, Ndongo and Matomba, and formed alliances with the Dutch to resist the Portuguese. She built forts in the mountains, mobilized enslaved people into soldiers, and used diplomacy to outmaneuver European powers. For over 3 decades, she made them bleed. Nzinga lost siblings, battles, allies. At one point, she fled into the mountains, her kingdom shattered. Yet, she never surrendered. In her 60s, she rode into battle. In her 70s, she still signed treaties. And in her 80s, she finally secured peace. Nzinga ruled until her death in 1663, an old queen. Undefeated, to some, she was ruthless, killing rivals, enslaving enemies, fighting with brutality. To others, she was a genius, a strategist, a protector of her people in a time of chaos. Was she a tyrant, or a freedom fighter in an age with no easy choices? One thing is clear, she was a lioness in a den of wolves. Today, Queen Nzinga lives on in statues, in songs, in stories whispered through the wines of Angola. She defied colonizers at the height of their power. She ruled like a queen, and fought like a general. When Africa needed resistance, Nzinga answered the call. Some are born leaders. Nzinga was forged by fire. Subscribe. Nestled along the Bandiaga escarpment in Mali, the Dogon people have lived in isolation for centuries. Their culture is rich, spiritual, and incredibly complex. They believe in a creation story passed down orally for generations, one that mentions a star system, long before astronomers had telescopes to confirm its existence. The star, Sirius B, a white dwarf companion to Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky. In 1931, to French anthropologists, Marcel Briot and Germain Dieterlen spent years among the Dogon, documenting their rituals, carvings, and cosmology. They were stunned. The Dogon described a tiny, invisible star called Potolo Sirius B, that it's made of a dense metal heavier than iron, that it orbits Sirius every 50 years. Even the presence of a third star, Mu possibly Sirius C. Western science wouldn't confirm the existence of Sirius B until 1970, with advanced telescopes. But how did the Dogon know this? This launched a wildfire of theories. In 1976, author Robert Temple published The Sirius Mystery, arguing the Dogon were taught by extraterrestrials, the Nomo, described in Dogon myth as amphibious beings from the sky. Temple suggested that the Nomo might be alien visitors from Sirius, who passed down knowledge to the Dogon. It sounds wild, but here's the thing. The Dogon have rituals, star maps, and cosmology thousands of years old, all centered around this mysterious star. So, is this ancient alien contact? Or is there another answer? Modern skeptics argue that Griot Dieterlen may have influenced the Dogon with Western astronomy, intentionally or not. Others believe the Dogon might have learned from passing travelers or missionaries. Still, the Dogon's deep symbolic understanding of Sirius and its companions long predates contact with the West. And here's the kicker. Their entire cosmology links human life, agriculture, and the soul to Sirius. This isn't just astronomy, it's spiritual science. The Nomo, according to Dogon belief, were divine beings who came from the sky in a spinning vessel, bringing order to the chaos of the world. They are water spirits, and their arrival is marked by spiraling motion, much like galaxies. Dogon priests even depict DNA-like spirals in sacred drawings, long before DNA was understood. Coincidence? Symbolism? Hidden knowledge? Or are we looking at an African cosmology so advanced we've only just begun to decode it? Today, scientists continue to debate. Some dismiss the Sirius mystery as anthropological exaggeration. Others see the Dogon as proof that ancient Africa held intellectual traditions far richer than the West ever gave credit for. But one thing is clear. The Dogon knew something, and whether that knowledge came from aliens, ancestors, or something in between, it challenges how we think about Africa, history, and human origins. In the cliffs of Mali, stories older than telescopes still live. This is Ancestral Files. Subscribe.